Captain Robert Hartwell had served as the Queen's personal security detail for 15 years, a position that required not just physical courage, but absolute discretion. At 41, he had witnessed state secrets, private conversations, and confidential meetings that could change the course of nations if they ever fell into the wrong hands. His loyalty to the crown was legendary among his peers, and his silence was considered unbreakable. The evening of October 15th started like any other at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, where the Queen was spending her autumn retreat. Hartwell was conducting his final security sweep of the grounds when he noticed something unusual near the estate's perimeter fence. Fresh tire tracks in the soft earth suggested vehicles had been there recently, but no authorized personnel were. Scheduled to visit the remote section of the property, his military instincts immediately went on high alert. Hartwell radioed for backup while carefully approaching the area to investigate. The tracks led to a small maintenance shed that should have been empty, but warm light flickered through gaps in the wooden walls. Someone was definitely inside, and they weren't supposed to be there. As Hartwell moved closer to investigate, he heard the low murmur of voices speaking in accented English. Through a crack in the shed wall, he could see 3 men in dark clothing examining what appeared to be surveillance equipment and detailed maps of the castle grounds. His blood ran cold as he realized he had stumbled upon a serious security threat. One of the men was pointing to specific locations on the castle blueprint while speaking into a radio device. The target will be in the East Wing Library tomorrow. Evening for the private meeting with the ambassador. Security rotations change at 2200 hours, giving us a 12-minute window for approach. Hartwell's heart pounded as he understood the implications. These weren't ordinary criminals or protesters. They were professionals, planning something that could endanger the Queen herself. He began to carefully back away to call for immediate assistance, but his foot caught on a loose stone. The small sound echoed in the quiet night air, and suddenly the voices inside the shed fell silent. The shed door burst open, and Hartwell found himself facing 3 armed men who moved with military precision. Before he could draw his weapon or activate his emergency beacon, they had surrounded him. The leader, a tall man with cold gray eyes, smiled without warmth as he recognized Hartwell's uniform and rank insignia. "Captain Robert Hartwell," the man said in a slight Eastern European accent. "How fortunate that we should meet tonight. You've just saved us considerable time and effort." Hartwell remained silent, his mind racing through possible escape scenarios while calculating the odds of overpowering 3 trained operatives. The men efficiently searched. Hartwell removed his radio weapon and emergency devices. They bound his hands with professional zip ties and led him deeper into the woods surrounding the estate. Their movements were coordinated and practiced, suggesting this wasn't their first operation of this nature. They brought him to an abandoned hunting lodge about 2 miles from the main castle, a location far enough from the estate to avoid detection, but close enough for their purposes. Inside, the lodge had been converted into a temporary command center with sophisticated communication equipment and detailed intelligence files spread across makeshift tables. The leader introduced himself only as Victor and made it clear that they knew extensive details about Hartwell's background, his family, and his role in the Queen's security detail. "Captain, we have no interest in harming you unnecessarily. We simply need specific information about tomorrow evening's security arrangements for the private meeting with the German ambassador." Hartwell looked around the room and realized the scope of the operation. Maps, photos, and documents covered every surface, showing months of careful planning and surveillance. These weren't random criminals, but professional agents working for unknown but clearly hostile interests. The information they were seeking could compromise not just the Queen's safety, but potentially national security. "I have nothing to say to you," Hartwell replied firmly, meeting Victor's gaze without flinching. "And you should know that my absence will be noticed within the hour. Security protocols will be activated, and this entire area will be searched." Victor laughed softly and checked his watch. "Actually, Captain, we've already taken care of that problem. Your radio reported a successful perimeter check exactly 17 minutes ago, and your tracking device shows you completing your normal patrol route. Our technical specialist is quite skilled at mimicking security protocols. The revelation hit Hartwell like a physical blow. His own security systems had been compromised, meaning his disappearance might not be discovered for hours. Victor continued with clinical detachment. We need the exact timing of guard rotations, the location of security cameras in the East Wing, and the emergency evacuation procedures for the royal family. Simple information that will save everyone. Considerable trouble. Hartwell's military training had included resistance to interrogation, but he had never expected to use those skills in defense of his own sovereign on British soil. Even if I knew such details, which I'm not confirming, I would never share them with hostile agents. My oath to the crown is absolute. One of Victor's companions, a stocky man with scarred hands, stepped forward menacingly. Victor raised a hand. To stop him, Captain, perhaps you don't fully understand your situation. We have surveillance photos of your elderly parents at their home in Yorkshire. Your sister Emma works late shifts at Manchester General Hospital, often walking alone too. Her car in the poorly lit parking garage. The threat was clear without being explicitly stated. Hartwell felt his chest tighten with rage and fear, not for himself but for his innocent family members, who had been drawn into this nightmare through no fault of their own. Victor watched Hartwell's face carefully, looking for signs that the psychological pressure was working. Your family's safety depends entirely on your cooperation, Victor continued smoothly. Provide us with the information we need, and they will never know they were ever in danger. Refuse, and you will be responsible for whatever consequences follow. The choice is entirely yours, Captain. Well closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of his parents' kind faces and his sister's dedication to helping others through her nursing career. They represented everything good and innocent that his oath was meant to protect. But he also thought of the Queen, who had trusted him with her life and the security of the nation. When Hartwell opened his eyes, his expression was resolute despite the terrible choice before him. My family raised me to understand that some principles are worth any sacrifice. If you harm them, you'll have to live with innocent blood on your hands, but I will not betray my oath, regardless of the consequences. Victor's patience was clearly wearing thin. He gestured to his companions, who began unpacking equipment that Hartwell recognized as interrogation tools. Captain, you seem to misunderstand the severity of your situation. We are not playing games here. Lives hang in the balance, including your own family's safety. The next several hours tested every aspect of Hartwell's mental and physical endurance. Victor's team employed psychological pressure, isolation tactics, and increasingly desperate measures to break the captain's resolve. They showed him photos of his family going about their daily routines, unaware they were being watched. They described in detail how easily accidents could happen to people who weren't careful. Throughout the ordeal, Hartwell repeated the same response: I have nothing to tell you. His voice grew hoarse, and his body trembled with exhaustion, but his commitment never wavered. He drew strength from memories of the oath ceremony where he had sworn to protect the crown with his life, and from the trust that had been placed in him by his sovereign and his country. As dawn approached, Victor was becoming increasingly frustrated and desperate. His operation was running behind schedule, and their window of opportunity for the planned infiltration was closing rapidly. This is your final chance, Captain. Give us what we need or face the consequences of your stubborn pride. Hartwell looked directly into Victor's eyes with a calmness that seemed to unnerve the agent. I've already told you everything I'm going to tell you. Nothing. My loyalty isn't something you can take from me through fear or force. It's something I choose to give, and I choose to give it to my queen and my country, not to criminals and cowards. Victor realized that traditional interrogation methods had failed completely against Hartwell's unbreakable resolve. The captain's unwavering loyalty had outlasted every psychological technique and threat they could devise. With their timeline collapsing and their mission at risk of total failure, Victor made a final, desperate decision. You're willing to die for your precious secrets? Victor asked with barely controlled fury. Even knowing that your death will accomplish nothing, except depriving your family of their son and brother? Hartwell's response was immediate and unwavering. If that's what honor requires, then yes. My life is a small price to pay for protecting my sovereign and my country. At that exact moment, The distant sound of helicopters filled the air, growing louder by the second. Victor's face went pale as he realized their operation had been discovered. Unknown to the agents, Hartwell's prolonged absence had triggered advanced security protocols that included aerial surveillance of the entire state perimeter. The hunting lodge was suddenly surrounded by armed response teams who had been tracking the heat signatures and radio emissions from Victor's equipment. Spotlights blazed through the windows as commanding voices ordered the immediate surrender of all occupants. Victor and his team found themselves trapped with no avenue of escape in the chaos of the arrest. Hartwell remained calm and focused, providing crucial information to the response teams about the agent's equipment and stated intentions. His survival of the interrogation had not only protected state secrets but had given authorities the time they needed to apprehend the entire spy network. Victor was led away in restraints, his mission a complete failure. As he passed Hartwell, he shook his head in what might have been admiration or disbelief. "You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the most foolish," he muttered. Hartwell's reply was quiet but firm. Sometimes they're the same thing. A medical team that examined Hartwell found him exhausted and shaken, but unbroken in spirit. His interrogation had lasted 12 hours, but his resolve had never cracked. The secrets he protected remained safe, and the Queen's security had been preserved through his sacrifice and unwavering loyalty. The investigation that followed revealed the true scope of the foreign intelligence operation that Hartwell had unknowingly disrupted. Victor's team had been planning to infiltrate the private diplomatic meeting to gather sensitive information about international trade negotiations that could have compromised Britain's economic interest for years to come. Hartwell's refusal to break under pressure had not only protected immediate security protocols, but had preserved crucial state secrets that affected national sovereignty. Intelligence analysts later determined that the information Victor sought could have given hostile nations significant advantages in upcoming treaty negotiations worth billions of pounds. 3 weeks after the incident, Hartwell was summoned to a private audience with senior government officials. In a quiet ceremony attended only by his immediate superiors, he was awarded the George Medal for gallantry in protecting national security. The citation, while necessarily vague about specific details, praised his exceptional courage and unwavering loyalty under extreme duress. The Queen herself requested a private meeting with Hartwell to personally thank him for his service. In the quiet of her private study, she spoke simply but powerfully about the trust she placed in those who served the crown. "Captain, your actions remind us all that true loyalty cannot be bought, threatened, or broken. It comes from within. From a commitment to something greater than ourselves." Hartwell found the Queen's words more meaningful than any medal or commendation could be. He had always understood his duty in abstract terms, but facing the ultimate test had shown him the real weight and importance of the trust placed in him. His willingness to face death, rather than betray that trust, had vindicated every choice he had made in his years of service. Years later, Hartwell would rise to become one of the most respected security officials in the royal household. His experience with Victor's interrogation became part of classified training materials used to prepare other guards for similar situations. Though the specific details remained secret, his example inspired a new generation of royal protectors to understand that their oath meant everything, and that some secrets were worth protecting with their very lives. The captain never spoke publicly about that night in the hunting lodge. Those who knew him could see that the experience had deepened his commitment to service. He had discovered that true strength wasn't found in weapons or physical power, but in the unshakable conviction that some principles were more valuable than life itself.